Okay, so thank you all for coming here. I'm going to talk about Agile-driven strategy execution. Now, before I start, a little bit about me. Who am I? My name is Šarūnas Kasnauskas. That's me after a little bit of Photoshop. Looking good, right? What I do, I'm a business intelligence and process analyst at Baltic Amadeus. Now, what that is I do ETL, I do some sort of, modeling, reporting, dashboards, and the other part is I work on processes and sort of creating the process, sort of trying to create the process-oriented culture in the company, if you want to say. And Baltic Amadeus is doing custom software development as the main specialization since 1988, so pretty old. The Agile fever started around 2010, so I'm here for over 2 years, and I've got the fever for about 2 years as well. So the agenda, the problem of executing strategic goals. Now, companies set strategies. How do you follow them? How do you implement? How can Agile help? Talking about the specific way of implementing it is I'm going to concentrate on using Kanban, sort of Kanban methods, Kanban elements. I'm going to introduce them, of course, and the specific solution of how we applied it and how it all works in Jira. Spoiler alert, yeah. And the overall benefits of what can a company get out of that, what do we get out of that, what can anyone applying this method get out of it. So yeah, strategic management. Now, most of the management people, the top executives say it's really important. We have to do it. Then you gotta convince everyone going top to bottom that this is really important. So you start with who do you want to be? You set your mission statement. You set your values. You set okay, we're going there. What are we going to aim for? Yeah, we're going to be the biggest company in the world by this and that year or whatnot. How are we going to do it? So we set goals. We set most of the time we set yearly goals that, we got to achieve this and that. Then we execute, and then we monitor and apply corrective actions, which can go pretty much anywhere. So yeah. So what's the problem with that? Now, strategic management is smooth sailing until you get to execution. Because it's, okay, we gather everyone that we're going to have these strategic goals, we're going to have these objectives and so on, and everyone's involved, they feel involved. And then when you get to execution, wait, who came up with that? I didn't sign up for this. I don't remember being involved, and now I have to do it, and I don't understand why I'm doing this, and so on. So for monitoring purposes, we have a balanced scorecard and KPIs. It's great. We monitor of how we're doing on the progress towards the top of the mountain, if you want to say, and then we evaluate. But yeah, how do we reach those KPIs? How do we reach those objectives? How do we sort of control the whole process? Maybe we use yearly goals for that. Now, yearly goals are all good. You write them all down, and how are you going to implement? How are you going to monitor all of that? That's usually how it looks like. Everyone's super hyped up, we're going to do it. And then a nice parallel with New Year's resolutions. Now it's really popular in United States, Western world, that, New Year's is coming, I'm going to work out, I'm going to eat healthy from now on, and the 2nd of January comes, it's like, maybe next year I'll do that, or the last minute comes and maybe I'm gonna try to eat healthier now to reach my goals. And I think the similar situation applies to yearly goals in companies, is that you set the targets. Yeah, we're gonna do this program, we're gonna do some R&D, we're gonna apply this and that until the end of the year. We set the date, okay, but usually it just gets delayed until the last day of the year, and then we try to do something. Oh, sorry, though, didn't have time, had to work. So that happens sometimes. So the exact problem is that yearly objectives to reach strategic goals have no centralized execution process. Therefore, there's lack of accountability. So if no one can see what everyone's doing, then, well, I'm supposed to do this, but no one's sort of telling me to do it, so not that interested. And if someone's doing something and they're trying to reach those goals, there's no bird's eye view of seeing the progress. So if I have to, I don't know, like install this new program, I need to contact the vendors, I need to do some analysis, I need to, install it, do some training to the people who are going to use it if there's some internal program. And I'm the only one usually who knows, or some other people around me who know the progress of what's going on. So that's not really ideal. Additionally, there's no strong link between strategy and day-to-day activities. So, okay, we're executing strategy. Now, how do the things that we do every day relate to the strategy, the strategic goals? And there's also a recognized lack of inter-departmental synergy that we're not using. So the principle of 1 + 1 = 3 is when we have two departments that could be cooperating and sort of getting more than 2 out of 1 + 1. So if you have some goals that need collaboration and maybe two separate departments are doing them on their own, and that's duplication, and that's not really achieving what needs to be done. So a little bit about Kanban. So most of you probably know what it is, but some of you might not be as familiar, so I'm just going to go through this anyway. So it's been inspired by a Toyota production system, all the lean production, all that stuff. But what it is basically, it's a board with cards on it. So you have a board, you have columns that you put, well, stereotypically you put sticky notes on the board, and you have the tasks on the sticky notes. It doesn't have to be a board, can be digital, can be a big whiteboard, a billboard, whatever you want, pretty much. Physical or digital, doesn't matter, and the number of columns can change as well. So you can have to do, doing, done, to do, doing, review, done, the backlog, or if you go into deeper development sort of forest, then you get like all these different additional steps like testing and like code review, all that stuff. So how it works, team pulls work from the to-do column, well, in this case, the to-do column, and starts doing the work. Sometimes a work in progress limit is applied. So per se, if you have a case where everyone's doing something but nothing gets done, so people are just doing a lot of things at the same time, it's not as effective. So you put a limit, okay, in the doing column, we're going to have only 5 tasks. And that's it, If you're stuck on the 5 tasks and some people are done, but there's still some clogging in the column, what you do is the other people have to, run in and help and cooperate. There's no traditional use of time boxes, as is typical to Scrum, to per se extreme programming and so on. So that's not really typical to Kanban. And yeah, the idea is you maximize productivity while reducing idle time. So always, okay, I need something to do. I look at the to-do list, what's at the top of the list that has the highest priority, so I sort of take that in and I do it. So yeah, it's widely used in software development, usually for tasks where you cannot anticipate what's coming tomorrow. Like you have like support tasks, or you do testing or so on, bug fixing. You don't know what's coming, so something comes in, goes into the to-do column, you pull that in and you do it. So, but the idea, first of all, the benefits. Okay, we have flexibility, that you can pretty much add any task wherever you want. You can change priorities. It's all really flexible, you know, what you can do with it. You can visualize the workflow, so you can always look at the board. Doesn't matter if it's physical or digital, and you see, okay, oh, I can sort of see what's going on. Okay, we start here, we do these tasks, these are done, and we continue with this. So it's kind of a nice way to visualize what you're doing. You limit waste through not doing things that are not as important or doing things that are not necessary. So because of the prioritization, you pull the things from the top and you sort of limit the time that could be wasted on doing things that don't really matter for that specific project or whatever you're doing. And of course, coordination. Yeah, the work in progress limit, you know, you put the limit and everyone sort of goes on to help each other, and it's really great in that way. Yeah. Okay, this doesn't want to let me click it. Some team viewer thing happening here. Someone's trying to move the presentation for me. Well, I'm gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. Yeah, continuous delivery. So you can pretty much add any value to the customer that you want throughout. So if you're doing stuff and there are changes in the requirements of the customers, you know, you move the priorities, and it's a great. There's a lot of opportunities to adapt to changing needs if you apply this method. Okay, so how can we deal with the problem? Again, advertisement for Jira. We're not associated with them in any way, but it's really a great tool. Because, yeah, why keep Kanban only for developers? You know, we have the tool already, and we sort of have a problem, and we know that Kanban is a great way of sort of dealing with things. Oh, it started working again. Okay. And yeah, use the tool that we already have. You know, why not? So what we decided to do is create a system of Kanban boards that would help us monitor, per se, the progress of reaching the goals, reaching the strategic sort of objectives that we set year in and year out. And also we create a feedback loop for continuous improvement. So we not only use the typical Kanban, but we add a little bit of Scrum to it. So we have, okay, not daily stand-up meetings, but we have weekly, bi-weekly, that sort of thing happening. So how does it all work? Well, there's a list of yearly objectives dictated by the strategy, written out by the management. So we have 3 strategic goals. Now, what objectives do we have to reach to move towards those goals? We have the list, and then this is a structure we're going to try to follow. So we have a strategic goal, so that you can all relate to this. Strategic goal, objective, task. Yeah, then after the yearly goal, the yearly objectives are set, the objectives are prioritized and added to the Kanban of Kanbans. Now, I've never heard of that term being used, but we sort of thought that it fits the picture. Yeah, and the objectives are assigned to organizational units, which have their own Kanban boards below the Kanban of Kanbans, if you want to say that. So to explain it better, we have the Kanban of Kanbans, and then, well, in Jira terms, you have the epics in the Kanban of Kanbans, and you have the objectives and tasks within the other boards that come below the epics. So yeah, so how does it all work? We create an issue. Let's just say tasks are given a deadline and a definition of done. So the deadline is important because it's sort of like the prioritization method that we use. So if the goal is really important, you know, we have to start working on it earlier. So we set the deadline earlier. Now, how each task is linked to the strategy goal, every time you put, doesn't matter if it's an objective, a task, if you put something new, you have a required field, that's strategy. You know, what strategic goal are you trying to reach with this task? simple drop down gets you thinking, you know, why are you doing this? How does this relate to the whole direction of the company? And yeah, the tasks are pulled from the backlog on voluntary basis within the unit specific boards. And yeah, then of course the tasks and objectives move between the columns, and the status is transparent to everyone. So everyone in the company can log into Jira, find the project. Okay, so this is per se marketing, this is HR, what are they doing? What's the status on all of these things they're working on? That's all transparent to everyone. And as I mentioned, we have reviews for each unit bi-monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, so on. And yeah, dynamically you can add new tasks or assignments as you go along. So if something really important comes up, it's not like, oh, sorry, we already have this list and that's final. You can add it dynamically, change the priorities, you know, it's quite simple. So how does it all look like? Well, we have in the Kanban of Kanbans, we have horizontal lines are the organizational units. So pretty much you have here, okay, project management office, marketing, so on, and they have those epics. Well, it's not really the nice agile way of using epics because we're changing the status and that sort of thing, but we have a backlog where we put the ideas, to-do column where, okay, the ideas have a definition of done, you know, they have a deadline, you put it there. In progress, what you're doing, you do a demo. Usually if it's like a big sort of thing, you do a demo for it and then you put it done. Unit specific boards are a little bit more simple. So instead of having organizational units going horizontally, here you have the epics, the objectives that you're trying to reach. So each objective has a certain amount of tasks that need to be doing. So you put the tasks, assign them to the objective, and you have a sort of visual way of seeing what's happening. Again, it's all due date prioritized, so you can go sort of at the top, you see the ones with the nearest deadline. And you don't have a review column here because if, you know, management tried to review all the tasks that you're doing, that would be quite inefficient. So yeah. So what did we achieve from all of this? Doing this. So coming back through to the problems that I mentioned earlier that we were facing with before implementing this is accountability. Now, if you take a task voluntarily, it's more likely that you're gonna be accountable for it. You're gonna sort of want to do it. So that's the sort of principle from Kanban that we applied that helps for accountability. Yeah, and you have deadlines and clear definitions of done, so you're accountable for, well, you know what it is if you're accountable for it. Now, okay, well, maybe change windows or something. Yeah, bird's eye view of progress. Now that's where the Kanban of Kanbans is important. So we have top management that wants to see what's happening. They log into Jira, they see the epic status. That's all they need. They don't need to go in deep into the tasks and subtasks or whatnot, what everyone's doing, but they sort of see the picture really quickly. And yeah, and a link between strategy and day-to-day activities through the magic attribute of when you create a new task. So you assign it, you select from the drop-down, you know why you're doing this. And yeah, inter-departmental synergy, again, we have the transparency. We can see what everyone's doing and like they go through a board. Oh wait, I like this marketing task. Maybe I can be helpful with that. So I can just go talk to the guy or just take the task from the backlog, start doing it. You know, there's no sort of barrier when it comes to that. So what can anyone take from this approach? That doesn't have to be an organization. You can apply it to your personal life if you want. If that's sort of if you're that level of an agile fanatic that you want to do Kanban in real life, you can do it. You know, there's no limit. So what's really important, visualizing the workflow. So if you sort of have a board, have a huge poster, I don't know what columns, or if it's digital, you know, even better. You visualize it, you know, you can see the big picture per se, and you know what you're doing. Setting priorities, of course, that's an agile thing as well, that okay, we're doing the things that are the most important, that have the most value first, and then we do everything else. You know, that's a key thing to take away from this. Status transparency, additional synergy. So if you have a family and you have 2 sisters and a brother and you all have the same board, you know what everyone's doing, so that's gonna help you hopefully achieve things better, more quickly, so on. And again, the reviews and all that thing, that the sort of daily scrums, if you want to call them like that, you have a short feedback loop that equals to continuous improvement. So because the way we implemented this, we didn't spend time on analysis doing like, oh, maybe we should have a board like that. Maybe we're going to have a field like this, a field like that, going to write it all down. No, we didn't do that. We just set the board running. Okay, ideas come in. Yeah, let's do it. Let's change it. Yeah. So that's about it for me. Now we have a lot of time for questions, I can imagine. So you can fire away.
Okay, thank you, Šarūnas. Any questions?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jeigu nėra rezultato, kas yra kaltas dėl to viso? Ne. Mm-hmm. 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 Kaip tai vyksta pas mus, tai jeigu matom, kad tarkim kažkokios užduotis iš tikrųjų siekia ne tų tikslų, kurių mes norim, tarkim mes matom, kad darom, nežinau, ten vėlgi diegiamės kažkokią sistemą, kuri mums padės sutaupyti laiko ir mes tada geriau bendrausim su klientu, skirsim jam daugiau laiko, tarkim, jeigu tas iš tikrųjų mums kainuos daugiau laiko, sužinosim, tai mes tiesiog išimam tą užduotį ir, ta prasme, prioritetas krenta, jeigu mes iš vis tą norim daryti, tai dėl to tas dinamiškumas ir yra labai svarbu, kad galima dinamiškai keisti prioritetus, galima išimti užduotis, o tokių dalykų kaip, aš nežinau, ar atsakiau į klausimą, ar ne tą biškį norėjot sužinoti. Ne visai tą. Ne, tai strateginiai dalykai, kaip ir minėjau, yra, ta prasme, top managementas, ten generalinis direktorius, visi kiti, kurie kaip ir padeda tą strategiją suformuluoti, bet esmė yra, kad visa tai gimsta iš pačių darbuotojų. Tai kaip minėjau apie tas vertybių iškelimą, tuos visus tikslus ir taip toliau, tai buvo vykdomos strateginės sesijos, kurių metu visi susėdo ir sugalvojo, kad mums reikia, tarkim, artimiausius 3 metus siekti būtent tokių tikslų. Taip. Yra, kaip ir minėjau, tie aukščiausi vadovai, kurie ties to ir dirba, nes ne tik vyksta, tarkim, tos peržiūros in English. Okay. Yeah, I understand. Well, the question was in Lithuanian, so I sort of got dropped off. The question was about, is there a body that tries to, that has to decide, okay, we're doing this, now we're going to cut it, we're not going to try to do this anymore. And yes, the answer is yes, we have, although the strategy is born from within all the employees, but we have top management that sort of has the reviews, not only unit-specific reviews that I talked about, like scrums and so on, but we do the same with the top management. Actually, they have daily scrums 3 times a week. So they gather and they're sort of not only talk about the operational things, but they go through the board, they see what's happening, they can take action to what's going on. So pretty much that's the idea. Now, any more questions?
Okay.
Wait just a second.
Okay, so my question is how you track progress in time. Because when you see the current status of the tasks on the board, it's good, but how you know that task is not too long in that status?
How we know that it's not too long in the status now, going back, well, it's probably going to take too long to go back, but when we have the cards on the board, there's a color indicator, sort of. So if you have a color that's red, it means that the deadline is approaching and you're still in the in progress column. So you have a separate filter for those sort of tasks, and you see that, okay, maybe we should pay extra attention. And as the keynote speaker noted, maybe it would be a good idea to set different colors to different statuses. Like if it's yellow, then you sort of need attention, you need management for that sort of thing. So it's not only the deadline, you see the number, but you also have color indicators on the board. Well, that's what we use for priorities. Because we set the priorities at first at the objective level, and each of them have a deadline, and first we set the priorities, then based on those priorities we set the deadline that we can sort of track it in time if we're doing this fine, but those deadlines are dynamic. So you can change those, but that's the mechanism we use to prioritize, because yeah, but you cannot do everything, you know, at the... Yeah, but if you try to do everything, you know, at the last month, you're not going to do it. So you sort of have to distribute. And the way to distribute is, okay, the first things go first, and then if we still have time, if we didn't have any sort of lag, if we didn't... well, if we fit in the schedule, we finish everything. But, you know, most of the time you cannot finish all the yearly goals that you set out. Or maybe you have time for more, so you add something more. But that's just not to leave it for the last moment, you know, last month, last day to do everything.
Okay, thank you. We have a question here.
I'm a little bit curious about packing into epics and teams. Have you sorted out the problems where people look differently upon how to pack it? Are you having any agreement on the teams and the epics before you go into development?
So as I mentioned about epics, well, that's just the sort of way of how we treat them in Jira. That's sort of like a technical way of treating them. That doesn't mean that they're like an epic story, but if your question is about the objectives that we set out, how do we distribute them across? And so pretty much the teams are unit specific. So we have marketing, we have HR, we have, say, production. We split production into smaller parts. Like if we work on .NET or Java, we have different parts. If you want to do R&D in .NET, you know, we have a separate sort of board for that. And it's quite sort of natural on who should be the one driving the thing, you know, if you set a goal. It usually works like that.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? There.
Isn't the whole idea of yearly planning kind of flawed, just as you said, I think previously in one answer, that if you reach your yearly goals, and most of the time probably you don't reach all of your yearly goals, and then the whole feedback loop is 1 year, right, for setting yearly goals, then is it then, does it really make sense to have these kind of yearly goals, apart from the fact that kind of gives you direction?
Well, the sort of yearly goal thing is what we sort of based it from. So, okay, the idea is we used to do that before, you know, we used to have those yearly targets that we set, and we sort of had that. Now, why don't we adapt that further? Now, what we're thinking is that doesn't have to be yearly sort of iteration things that we're doing, because okay, it's December, we did everything, you know, well, we're not going to stop there, we're going to think of new things to do. And I think the yearly goal thing is going to sort of fade away, and it's just going to be the strategic goals, the new sort of ideas that come in that would help us reach the strategy, and that's going to be the future sort of improvements. Because we had that practice, we tried to base the whole process from that practice. So yeah.
Okay, any more questions? I have one. What the biggest challenge you faced when implementing through all organization your Kanban?
Well, what is the biggest challenge? Well, it's probably the challenge of convincing everyone that the strategy is really important. You know, that, as I mentioned in one of the first slides, you know, you set the values, you set the targets, you set the goals, and that's all nice. But when people do their work, you know, they're sort of concentrating on, oh, I have a project, you know, I have to do operational work, I have to develop, I have to test, I have to do analysis, and you sort of forget about the things that would make your operational life much easier. So maybe you don't spend too much time on R&D, or maybe you're not spending too much time, you know, going to training, going to conferences and so on. So probably that's the biggest challenge, is to convince everyone that, yeah, the work you do today for the strategy is going to help you do your operational work in the future. So there might be a little bit of resistance, you know, if you want to call it like that, from that sort of perspective. So yeah, that's the main key.
Yeah, I just want to ask, how often do you reviewing your, Kanban board, tasks in progress and in backlog and so on, and how, what is approaching these meetings? How long you spend while reviewing in progress tasks, backlogs, and so on?
Well, as I said, the usual thing is we have, per se, even in the top management, we have sort of daily scrums that go on for like 30 minutes. But in those 30 minutes, you go through the boards, you can see that, okay, this task is red. Now, why is it red? What can we do to help it, you know? You have, well, talking again in Scrum terms, you have the sort of daily Scrum things, and we're thinking about adding, you know, retrospectives and all that sort of thing. But, you know, you have to think about the periodic sort of element to it, like how often should you do it, what's going to be the structure, you know, because it's not really like development. It's a complex sort of thing, and it's like a soft objectives and soft targets. So, but the daily Scrum things are really, really nice. And if you want to see it more often, you know, you just log in, see all the status of all the units whenever you want. But yeah, the daily thing is really, really helping. Yeah, you have well, again, I call it daily because that's how it usually works, but it's not as often as daily. But as I said, you have the sort of CXO level managers doing that, and you have the units doing that separately. So on different sort of schedules, but that's pretty much how it works. Now, if it's optimal, I don't know, but we're gonna try to see where that goes.
Okay, we have here.
How do you identify whether the project should follow a Kanban or maybe some other Agile methodology, say Scrum, or like, and it has to be convinced across the organization. Maybe a part of the team or part of the unit wants to follow Scrum, then we are not on the same page. Like, it's because maybe Scrum takes a lot of time, and Kanban is an easy to implement because you don't have that process.
Well, the thing with Scrum is that you have to, you know, you set iterations. You set that, okay, we have like 2 weeks and we're going to do this, and that. The next week we have a sprint planning, like we have, you know, all the backlog meetings and all that sort of stuff happening. And you have to estimate everything in like story points, or you set, I don't know, some people use hours, but that's not really the best practice. But with Kanban, the idea was that we don't want to like estimate everything in hours or man days or whatever and log work on those things. We want to make it simple, because for the development, it's really sort of natural. Okay, well, I did this task, estimated it in story points, and that's really natural. But because we're incorporating marketing, HR, sales, and all those other units to the same process, for them that's really new. And we thought that the easiest way to start off with would be just to visualize the progress, sort of set the statuses without all the estimation and all the sprint plannings and all those things, because it's really a little bit more, well, it could be more advanced, but usually, you know, Kanban is for like self-organizing teams that really have all those really developed players in them. But we thought that the visualization was the key aspect that we want to get out of this approach. So that's why we chose Kanban.
So as I understand, this is completely separate from development, and all of the tasks that you do not include any developer units or development
They
units.
They do. As I mentioned before, we have, per se, production unit that has this, his sort of general things that, okay, we have to like send people to training, we have to do this and that, but then we have specific boards for the, well, technologies mostly. So we have .NET or Java. They have their own sort of boards that, again, they're shown in the Kanban of Kanbans, like their epic statuses, and they're also involved. So they're setting out that, oh, we have to research this technology to be able to, you know, do projects next year, provide that service to the clients, and so on. So that stuff that's not operational, that's not project related, all goes to this. So it doesn't matter if it's HR, marketing, or development.